Hi everyone, and welcome to the Book Refuge, and welcome to the review and recap / comparison to the books for Outlander Season 5, Episode 10, Mercy Shall Follow Me. So, a couple things I got to get out of the way first. I make lots of Outlander content here on my channel. There's a whole playlist linked at the end of this video, as well as on my channel if you're interested. I have reviews for all of the books 1 through 6, as well as all the seasons of the show, and individual reviews for Season 5 of the show. Second, I don't know how we're going to handle this review. I'm going to try my best. I, as usual, was a little bit frustrated at the end of the episode last night, but that's what you guys are here for. We're here to vent together and to make it through this together. But there's one other thing I want to mention. So we are coming to the end of this season, which I want to say that I'm sad about, but also after how some things have been done this month, I think I'm going to need a cooling off period to get excited again. Just being honest, but I don't want the Outlander content to end. So I'm planning to continue with some Outlander videos because I don't see a lot of other channels doing that on YouTube, and it's something that is close to my heart. So I have a few plans. One of them is to read the Lord John novels and review them because that's something that I haven't gotten to yet. When I finish my reread of the regular series, I plan to read these as well as 7 Stones to Stand or Fall, and maybe do one big review reviewing all the little novellas in that collection. But also I have some of the TV show content planned where I can do I'm planning to do ranking the episodes of season 5, do a video of my top 10 favorite episodes of the whole show so far. So there's going to be there's going to be a little poll up here at the eye. If you don't understand what that means, there's a little eye coming up here. If you click that, if you're on your phone or computer or tablet, a little poll will drop down and you can tell me which thing you would rather see first when the season is done. So there we go. Enough of that. Let us try to get into this episode. So first thing I'm going to say, here, I've got some coffee to get through this because it's early. I try to film these as soon as I wake up on Sunday mornings to get them up at a reasonable time so you can start seeing them. And I need coffee to make it through. So what I'm planning to do is, as we go through this, we know that this episode came mostly from the end of A Breath of Snow and Ashes, okay? Because we've killed Stephen Bonnet sooner than I predicted. And now I have some things to say about that. Of course, I have some things to say about that. But as I go through this recap and review, because you know how I do it, I will tell you the order of events because I know some of you who watch this, you're not able to watch the show yet because it's not out in your country. And I've had many of you message me and say that my reviews help you know what's going on without having to be able to watch it yet legally, and I appreciate you trying to be legal. Good for you. I kind of go through it and I tell you what the show did and I say whether I like this or not based on how it fits the book. Since we have jumped ahead years in the timeline to have this happen, I'm going to more so just compare how the situation goes down to what happens in the book. And then at the end of this, I'm going to go over 3 reasons why I think they had to do this based on real world things having to do with actors and setup and things like that. And then 3 reasons why I think it was a horrible idea that they did do it. But I'm going to give you the reasons why I think these writers and showrunners had to do it, even though it was dumb. So, okay. So let's go. So the breakdown of this, we start this off with Bonnet is meeting with Forbes again, and they're ready to make their press forward to try to get custody of Jem and get custody of River Run because Jocasta has signed over River Run to Jemmy in care of, I think Jamie / Duncan are the ones taking, in charge of it, but it all belongs to Jem. And Bonnet believes that if he can make the claim for his son, because he believes that Jemmy is his son, Brianna did tell him so, because she thought he was going to die, that the law, because they don't believe that a child can be conceived of rape, because, okay, apparently we don't know how biology works, which I know that they don't, that he could get custody of Jenn. And so he's ready to push this suit. And he's also trying to become a gentleman, apparently. He's trying to clean up his image. And he believes that he has enough dirt on people that by taking over River Run and making a claim as its master, that he wouldn't get killed for all the things that he's done. Because when we first meet Bonnet, he's being hanged for being a smuggler. And he gets away. And now he wants to set himself up as master of River Run. And with the help of Forbes, his lawyer, he thinks he'll be able to do that. Then we have Claire and Bree and Jamie and Roger and Ian meeting, coming up with this plan where Philip Wiley helped them set up this meet under duress, of course, for them to meet with Bonnet and try to give him some whiskey. Are kind of just hanging out in Wilmington and getting supplies, getting medical things, and just chilling, just the two of them. We have an interaction with Roger and Jamie when they're at the hunting shack, and we have this moment where Roger finally says that I'm the one who's going to kill him, he's mine, and Jamie just kind of looks at him a little bit funny, and Roger is like, he's mine, I'll take him. Brianna's your daughter, but she's my wife. And Jamie says, it is your right, so then don't hesitate, don't challenge him, go for the kill the instant that you get the chance. If you fall, though, know that I'll avenge you. And then Roger says, all right, and if you fall, I'll avenge you. It's a bargain. And Jamie doesn't laugh at him, and he says, it's a rare bargain indeed. So I just was quoting that right from the book. Those are the words that they used in the show. That's great. It was kind of funny watching it, because I was like, why is this such a stiff interaction? And then I pulled out my book, and that's what the book said. So sometimes the show even surprises me, because I can't remember every single detail. That's why I pull out the books. I consider the books my Bible when we're talking about these things. But the reason why it feels stiff is, number one, we've never had the fight training that I wanted there to be. There was not even a sequence. There's not even a mention that they have been training together, even though at the end of the last one, Roger asked him to do that for him. We can see that Jamie is obviously healed and better, and there's not even a mention that they've been training together, which would have been the perfect bonding time. It's like the show wants to remove any possibility that we could like Roger more by seeing Jamie approve of him. And so we see that little bit of approval in that moment where Jamie's like, I take your claim seriously. Like, I'm trusting that you'll be able to get avenge my daughter. So I like that. Doesn't last too long though, because the men arrive and we realize that Bonnet isn't there with him. So they end up having to fight it, and they do a little bit of torture with one of the men to find out where Bonnet is, and we realize that he is in Wilmington. Flash over to Claire and Bree, who are hanging out on the beach, picking up shells, looking for different things, and Bonnet knows where they are because we've seen someone watching them, which I picked up on. I'm sure you do too. Whenever they show a camera watching two people from far away, like it's like the camera showing you like walk behind a stall or something. Generally that means someone's watching you, and so I was like, oh yeah, Bonnet's stalking them. That's great. We're still having book 5 parts happen right here. And the part that's from book 5 is that Stephen does confront them, and we have this conversation in the book because there's a whole other story plot that happened in book 5 that we didn't have in the shows, where there was Lieutenant Wolf was working with Stephen Bonnet, and Lieutenant Wolf had murdered one of the servants there, and we had been trying to find that out. And also, someone had held Jocasta hostage on her wedding night, and Duncan had been attacked, and she remembered the voice and like the feel of this person, but we didn't know who it was, and it was Bonnet, because Bonnet was trying to find the Frenchman's gold. That is the entire aim of Bonnet like the entire way through this series. He hears about the gold mentioned and he's hunting it down. And his desire in Jem being his son is more of like a casual thing. Like, he doesn't have any interest. He doesn't think that he can get River Run. He's a criminal. He wants the gold that's there. That's the only thing that he wants. And so so the part where they confront on the beach, that is from book 5. In book 5, we actually have, in the books, it's Claire, Marcelly, and Brianna, and then Jem and Germain are like all there. And there's this huge confrontation of, he is trying to get Bree and his son to come with him. And, you know, we think it's basically to use them as hostage is what he wants to do, because he wants the gold from Jocasta. So he's planning to use her as hostage. Ends up that he gets shot in the balls and he ends up getting away from them, but nobody gets kidnapped. Nothing happens there. It's a brush with him. And we find out some information about who'd been killing the people. We find out what he's really after. We find out who this person was who had attacked Jocasta. So it's really kind of like a wrapping up. When we talk with him, it's kind of a wrapping up of like all these different pieces we've been seeing throughout the book. Stephen Bonnet is the answer. And he ends up getting away in the books. So, but anyway, so that's what happens in this situation in the book. In the show, there's a kerfuffle. Bonnet gets his hands on Claire. All she has is her dirk, which is helpful, but not so great against a very strong, angry man. And so then Bree she has her pistol, but her powder is wet, and so she isn't able to shoot. And so she literally just runs at him, and the second he touches her, he clocks her in the head. And it's so frustrating. Like, I can't even. So after that happens to Bree, Claire wakes up alone on the beach and rushes to start finding Jamie and Roger. Then we enter just a very interesting string of events. And this is where I write in my notes, like, this actor, like Ed Speleers, does such an amazing job with Stephen Bonnet. And one of the reasons you're going to see when I get to the end of this video and I'm talking more in detail about some things, the reason I'm the most sad is that I wish we'd had more with him. Because this episode with him and Sophie Skelton working off each other is some of the best acting this season. Like, it is amazing. It's painful to watch because this is just this coiled snake who wants to snuggle up to you, but you know the second you say the wrong thing or the wrong move, it's going to bite you and it's going to hurt. And, ooh, it's painfully beautiful and horrible to watch. And this actor gets all of my credit. And as usual, everything I'm going to say from here on out has nothing to do with the quality of these actors. And if this was a show being made without my favorite books as the heart material, I would just be like, Emmy, give them an Emmy. This is amazing, you know? And I still feel that way for the actors because I hope this is a career-defining role for Ed Speleers. And Sophie Skelton, who this is her, she's been in a few other things before Outlander, but let's be real, Outlander's the biggest thing she's ever done. She's amazing. She's so good. Okay, so we have Bree wake up, and she's in a room with Stephen, and he's being very strange. He makes it clear that he wants to live with Bree and Jemmy and take over as master of River Run, because that's just how it works. Because him being Jem's father would mean he'd be in control of all of it. Which I don't even think that's how it'll really work, because even if Jocasta put other people in charge of it, even though Jem, like the reason she didn't put Brianna as the one over it is so Roger couldn't have control of anything. And in the same reason, that's why, like, Jamie is the executor of the will. And in the book, I don't know, because maybe he's hoping that he'll kill everybody else, so then he's the only one left to be the, like, one in charge of Jem's stuff. But the reason Jocasta didn't make Brianna the one in charge of Jem's fortune is, number one, like, so that a husband, the person who married her, couldn't. And Bree is already legally married to somebody else. Even if Bonnet wants to, like, coerce her into living with him, legally everything she owns belongs to Roger. So just getting into the antics of that, his plans aren't working. And I think we're supposed to assume that he's just too crazy to figure it out. But I feel like Forbes would have explained that to him because he's the lawyer and he wants this to work out. Anyway, so Bonnet has toys for Jemmy and a dress for Bree, and he makes her dress up and wear it and sit down to dinner with him. And Bree's just really watching him. And Steven is trying to be a nobleman, because if he's going to be Jem's dad and be in charge of River Run, he needs to be more respectable. So he's asking Bree to teach him, and Bree decides to buy some time because she knows that her mother isn't dead, and she knows that her mother is going to get someone to come for her. Like, she knows that. But they don't know where she is. They don't know where Steven has taken her. And in the book, I believe she's on his ship with him. She's with him for a good period of time because he moves her. I know she's on the ship at least right away because he brings her to this place that isn't where we are. So, oh, by the way, I haven't said, we've now skipped to book 6 a few years later than our first interaction, okay? Which, again, I'm just going to go by how well I think this episode followed what happened in the book, even though that book is a later book. We've skipped ahead quite a ways. So Bree is in his care, and so in the book at this time, Bree is pregnant with their second child, and so she's very nervous that he will hurt her and cause her to lose this child, or, you know, and she's not very far along with her, but she's very cautious of how much she can fight and what she can do with having the child inside. Also, we're reminded of, I forgot about this because I usually skip the previously on Outlander because I hate it, because it previously on is just such a dumb thing to have, because either you're binging the show and you don't need previously on, or you have been watching it week by week and you don't need previously on. All it does is give you hints about what the episode's going to be about, and I hate that. But anyway, we're reminded of the conversation that Jamie had with Bree, that she didn't fight hard enough when she was raped. And Jamie said, you did what you had to do to stay alive, and that's always the right thing to do. You're not weak, you're not giving in, you didn't ask for it just because you don't fight. And so this time around, that's what Bree does. She remembers that advice from her father, and she plays along. And so she starts giving him things, and then it's time for bed. And the thing that I want to say is, like, we have Steven saying all these, like, sweet things. And he says to her, teach me how to love. And it's so creepy. Like, I know we're supposed to feel that way. And Bree is just trying to hold it together, and she's afraid that he's going to force himself on her. And so she says that she'll read to him. It's so painful. And Sophie does such a good job. You can just see it on her face, where she knows that if she makes him happy, it'll be better for her. But she just wants to die. Like, she's turned away from him, and he's, like, right behind her. And he's like, teach me how to love. And he's like, so she says she'll read to him. Can I read to you? That's what a lady and a gentleman can do when they spend time together. And it's kind of funny because there's a part of him that I feel like is playing her the whole time to see what she's willing to do. And there's another part where, like, you think he maybe wants to believe her. At least the way that Ed is playing it is, you think, you know, but it's like, I just don't buy that. I just don't buy that. But the Steven that they have in the show, I feel like he's delusional. And I feel like that's the way they're kind of going with him in the show, is that he's just so up his own ass that he doesn't realize that he's a monster and that he doesn't realize how much people hate him. And that's just very different because the Stephen in the books, he's very self-aware of how horrible he is. Like, he doesn't pretend to be anything else. And so when he's sweet sometimes and can do these like kind things, you're stunned by it. And so when he's vulnerable, like when there's the time where Bree like he has her sleep with him and he doesn't rape her, he does touch her because he literally like wraps himself around her because he has to sleep with someone in his bed because he has nightmares. He has those drowning nightmares. And Bree isn't able to smother her like mothering self, and so she sings him to sleep, she comforts him, and she's able to like do that, and that is part of her coping mechanism. But also she's like, man, this guy really needed a mom, and he could have been so different if he'd had that. Like, even so much, like, in the book, like, he wakes up from a nightmare, and she's, like, getting up to get a drink, and he's like, don't leave me, because we see his vulnerable side, like, when he wakes up from this nightmare, and it's a really, like, forced, intimate moment, and in the book, you're so uncomfortable, but Diana is able, like, so he has that same conversation, and I like how they have it. It comes about while she's reading Moby Dick to him, and she's able to, like, he leaves her to fall asleep on her own. But I feel like we could have had that, like, forced intimacy without him making it seem that, like, no, you're going to live with me. And he keeps saying all these things of, like, I want to be a good father. Teach me how to be a good father. What do you do for Jem when he's sad? And there's just this, like, and, like, Stephen's basically, like, crying about it. And, like, he does get really worked up about it in the book. So some words from the book is he wakes up and she's laying beside him. She's like petting his hair and he's saying like, there's this dream. Since I was a lad, I've dreamed of drowning. The sea comes in and I cannot move. Not at all. The tide's rising and I know it will kill me and there's no way to move. It's gray water full of mud and there are blind things swimming in it. They're waiting on the sea to finish its business with me and then their business of their own. And then she says, it's only a dream. And he's like, oh no, it's the sea herself. She's calling to me. So that's kind of the same. And she just goes, shh, I won't hurt you. I won't let anything hurt you. Hush now. So she literally comforts her rapist and this man. And, you know, she's just the strongest woman. God damn. Bree is like the strongest woman that I've ever like read. She's amazing. And the way that she can have compassion for him is just, it's amazing. So they show that differently in the show. So then we have the next morning and we have Bree trying to convince him to let her go get Jem. And this is where we have things kind of change a little bit. Let me see if I can find this here. Whoop. Yes. Oh my gosh. I totally forgot about this. I was pulling up the scene that scene leads into, because what we have in the show is Bree's trying to convince him that she'll be with him, asks if she can go get Jemmy and bring him to him so he can meet his father, which, okay. And he says, you need to convince me. And so she kisses him. And that's when it all snaps, because he can apparently tell from the kiss that she's not into it. And then he brings in a prostitute and like does her in the same room as Bree, and Bree's just like terrorized by this, and then things spiral from there. But I want to go back to when that scene happens in the book. And what happens at that scene in the book is that he does make a move on Brianna, because I forgot about this. He has a nickname for his penis. His penis's name is Leroy, and he tells her Leroy's needing a bit of a gallop. Which, God, Stephen. And Bree says to him when he like makes a move on her, she says, she's like, I'll know who this baby's father is or I'll die for it. And that's when like we find out that she's very, very new pregnant. And he literally like feels her upper breast and is like, oh, you could be. Well, all right, I'll find somebody else. And so he finds this woman and brings her in there and like literally does her like right there. So same thing, but he isn't doing it out of anger to her, where, I mean, yes, Bree doesn't want to watch him have sex, but it's not like he's hurting her emotionally. You know, this isn't like it's like her husband and she won't give her husband what he wants and he then like has sex with somebody else. Like, no, she's glad that he's not forcing her on it. It's more of like a disgusted thing of like watching him do that. And it's like, God. Okay. So yes, so that happens. She kisses him. The kiss isn't good enough. It's just how they've turned him into, like, he thought that she could love him, or that's what he's trying for. I would have appreciated it more if it was all a game to him, instead of them making him seem like this is something he wants, that he wants a relationship with Brianna, where he says, I could learn to love you for our son, is like, I don't know. Like, I don't get where they're going with this. It's just, I thought they've done Stephen Bonnet so well up to this point. And again, I think the actor is just giving this his best go. Like, he's so scary and then like charming in 1 second and vulnerable. And the way he just goes between them is inspiring. Like, it is amazing. But it's not Stephen Bonnet. Like, Stephen Bonnet isn't this delusional. He's very pragmatic. Like, even in that scene I read where like, all he wants out of Bree is release. Like, he's not trying to be sadistic to her. He's a dick. He is a rapist. He's a horrible person, but it doesn't come from malicious intent. Stephen doesn't do anything like out of revenge or malicious intent. There's something he needs from Bree. He needs money from her. She doesn't know where the gold is, so he's going to sell her, which is how it goes down in the book. She doesn't know where the gold is, so he's going to sell her so he can make some money off of her. And that's what this leads to. This isn't out of revenge. This isn't out of some vindictive streak because she can't love him and won't give him what he wants. He just needs what he needs. And to me, that's a fundamentally different person. And in the book, the way I'm able to have any form of compassion for Stephen is just that he never pretends to be other than he is. He is who he is. He's cruel. He's vicious. He is mostly fair in a twisted way, and it's strange to me. So yep, then in the show we have him selling her, and he's on the way to sell her when our Frasers arrive. They come in, we capture him, and Bree decides that she doesn't want them to kill him. She doesn't want the death on their hands. They're gonna turn him in. And they're like, okay, aren't you afraid he's going to get away? Like, he knows too many people. And Jamie brings up, you know, Tryon owes us for what happened to Alamance. He'll make sure this guy gets killed. And then we finish out the episode with him being tied to the post where he'll drown. And Bree shoots him in the head and ends him. And Roger asked, was this for mercy or is it because... I think this is fine. The producers made a big thing about the fact that Roger questions her and says, you know, are you doing this for mercy or because you want to make sure he's dead? And they're like, and she doesn't answer the question because I think it's 50-50. And I don't know. They're just making kind of a thing out of it. And in the book, I think it's so powerful because it's strange because Bree lets him be turned over for justice and then ends up killing him the same way she would have killed him if she had let them kill him that day, by shooting him in the head, which is what they would have done at that moment. But it's the fact that she wanted justice that I appreciate. Like, I appreciate that she's like, I don't want this to be on anyone else's hands. And then when she goes to put him out of his misery, she is doing it out of mercy. And she's doing it out of answering the promise that she makes him when she says, you know, I'm not going to let you die your nightmare. Which, you know, if you watched my review of A Breath of Snow and Ashes, I found that very just so brave that Bree could put aside that and give this man this mercy. And I think that comes from the fact that after she spent that significant time with him, he's a horrible person, he's a rapist, he's a slave trader, he's all these things, but he's never pretended to be otherwise, and he's always been honest with her. In all of their interactions, he never tried to be someone else, and she gives him that mercy of not making him die his nightmare. He doesn't really get to die honorably. It's not like he got a soldier's death or anything. He's dying a criminal's death, being, you know, nailed to a, like, tied to a pole to slowly drown as the tide comes in and out. And her and Roger come up in a boat hidden by the fog, and she shoots him in the head. And that's what happens in the book. And in the book, Bonnet sees her and he says, "You've left it a little late, darling, but I knew you'd come through." And Bree just says, "Go with God, Stephen." And she pops him in the head. And then she says, "Take us home." And it's a very powerful moment, because the other thing is that at this point in the book, Bree and Roger know that they have to go back to the future. And it's been like 8 months since our last interaction with him, which I get why they don't leave that, because he's in prison, he has a trial, there's a lot of things going on, and they don't do this until much later because she's already had Mandy. And this is the final piece of that past that she needs it to be done. And she is honoring Stephen when she does that for him. And in the show, for it to be like, was this mercy, or are you making sure he's dead? It's more of it, to me, in the show, felt more like her putting down a feral cat, because he's panicking and freaking out, and she shoots him and it's done. And sure, you can say like, mercy, this, it's half and half. But to me, it really more feels like she's putting down a feral cat than her having had that connection with Stephen. Not a connection she wants, not a connection that is like there's anything more to it than during the time she was with him, she saw the kind of like man that he was in there, and she was able to have compassion for that human and not let him die his nightmare. So there we go. So then we're at an end of Stephen Bonnet. So, okay, that's what happened in the episode. As I promised, let's talk about 3 reasons why I think they had to have this happen. So, the main thing is, I don't know what the contracts are in this, but I have a good feeling that maybe we weren't going to pay to have Ed around for a whole nother season to just have him do these little scenes. Because in all honesty, I always did feel that the Stephen story was carried out 1 book too long. We have him being our big bad, just skulking around for like 6 years or so in book time. And he's just always this person we're worried about coming back and ruining our lives. And I think it was a fair thing to have him be, you know, like what happened with him happened last season. It's kind of been hanging over Roger and Bree's head for this season. Let it be the ending of this. Let's not drag it out another season. We're probably going to get into more of the Revolution stuff coming soon. So I understand that'd be a reason that they do it. So those are like 2 of the reasons why I think they did it. And another one is just that, yeah, I think it's mostly in that. I think it's one that we can't keep that actor hanging around just for those couple scenes. That's hard just for contract wise. It doesn't make a lot of sense story wise in a show to keep giving us teases of this guy's plan and then nothing ever happening with it. And I think that's the problem they got in by not having any of the other conflicts that were going on in the book. Like, we didn't have the murders that happened. We didn't have the Frenchman's Gold still going on. We don't have the same drama on the Ridge going on. Like, we don't have any of those things. We really have the Stephen Bonnet plotline, the Roger and like the Roger's tension at being back in time here, and that's kind of it. And like our Alan Man stuff is over, so we need to wrap this up. So the way stories happen in TV shows needs to be a little more concise than we can in the books. And even though in the books it's fine because Stephen Bonnet he's just always in the back of our heads, but we don't worry about him. Whereas in the show, they have to keep bringing him up. And if they just keep bringing him up and there's no payoff, people are going to get pissed off. And I'm sure if you're someone who also listens to, you know, Outlander cast, I'm sure Blake will have really great things to say about this week because they're wrapping up a part of the story. But then there's 2 episodes left. And from what the preview, and I believe Diana wrote the next one. So I'm very interested to see where that goes. And obviously she can't just write whatever she wants. Like, there's still a storyboarded thing about what she's going to write. I do love when it's her because at least she does a lot of dialogue and a lot of like scenes from the book and can give us things we want, but it's not like she can just do whatever she wants. And this is the penultimate episode, so I really hope, or the next one is, and I'm really excited for her episode. I think she wrote episode 11. I'm pretty sure. I can't look it up because I film with my phone, but I'm pretty sure I would have known if she wrote this one because they'll totally have to have her in the after credits thing if she wrote it. So anyway, and then, okay, now I'm going to tell you some reasons why this was a horrible idea to do this way, even though show-wise this makes sense. Couple reasons. Number one, we still have not established that Jemmy is Rogers. We haven't done a single one of the things that happened in the Fiery Cross where we prove that Jemmy is actually Rogers. There's like 3 different things that happen. 1, the tongue rolling thing. 2, the Punnett squares where Claire explains like what this means. And then we talk about like the time travel part. We're trying to figure out if Jemmy will be able to time travel. And 3, there's when there's lice and we discover that Jem and Roger have a birthmark in exactly the same place on their heads, the same shape, everything. It's exactly the same. It's hereditary. And there's just thing after thing after thing that stack up where we are so sure that Jemmy is Rogers. And like, besides what's in Bree and Roger's heart, it's a done deal. They haven't done anything about that except have Roger be worried that Jemmy isn't his. There was never any confirmation. There was never anything to help him feel more secure in that. And to me, him finding out that Jem is really his after Stephen is dead will not have the same impact at all because it's way more powerful in the books that we know he's his. So when Bree is confronted with Stephen Bonnet at different times, she knows that Jemmy's hers. So even though he's questioning her, even though like that quote I just read where she's like, I'll know this baby, who this baby's dad is if it kills me. Yeah, there's still some of that doubt, but they're 98% positive that Jem is Rogers. And after Bonnet gets shot in the balls at the end of book 5, we're pretty sure that he's infertile now. And if he had raped Brianna again, which praise God that didn't happen, it wouldn't be his anyway. So number one, I think that's a horrible idea because it's going to take, but guess what? The show doesn't give a shit about Rogers. So there's that. There's that. Another reason is I don't know what they're going to do for the rest of this season. I mean, I never know what they're going to do. And I just think they rushed through so many things to get to this point. I think that's because they went really heavy on Stephen Bonnet right now because, again, keeping an actor in a contract, if they let him out of it so he can make other things in the meantime, there's no guarantee he could come back. And it's just not a great way to go about that. Number 2, now they can never come back to the Frenchman's Gold. I mean, okay. They can. Because the ultimate person after the Frenchman's Gold, we have, you know, if you've read the books, like, you know who that is. But they've kind of like taken Stephen away as someone who's trying to get it. And Stephen is the reason for a lot of our conflicts in book 5 and 6. And now he's gone. So I'm not sure what they're going to do with that. Number 2, or another reason, we're just going to miss Ed Spleers because he's amazing. And I really would have liked to have more episodes with him, more things with him. He's fascinating. But I'm glad we're done torturing Bree, but yeah, I guess. So yeah, the major one for me, as always, has to do with the character of like Roger and Bree. And like, it's so important to me because we watch Roger's like confidence grow. Something else that they've skipped ahead, they've made Jamie be like 100% better. We've missed the entrance of the Christies, which during the time that Jamie is ill, like I feel like we should have had one more episode in between. Like I feel like we should have had one more episode where Jamie is healing, and there could have been different things happening on the ridge, and we could have been setting stuff up with Stephen Bonnet. Like I think that this episode, if they were going to do it this way, should have been the next one, because I wanted to see Roger and Jamie training. Maybe that's Jamie still hurt and him having Roger do drills. Maybe that's him practicing with Ian. Maybe that's Roger who gets to handle some work for Jamie on the ridge, because while he's sick is the time when the Christies come to the ridge, who the Christies are a major part of the plot in book 6 and the beginning of 7, and we haven't introduced them yet at all, and maybe they still will at the very end, but now it won't be Roger bringing them in because Jamie's back to normal. So unless he gives that responsibility to Roger, but Roger hasn't had the opportunity to earn it, because the way that he earns it is Jamie literally can't do it, and so Roger has to make a call to invite the Christies in. And then he goes to see Jamie on his sickbed and is like, hey, we took on some new tenants. We took on the Christies. I hope that's okay. And Jamie's like, the Christies are here. That's interesting. Tom Christie hates me, but he came to live here. That's so strange. You know, and it's this like intriguing thing where we know there's things about Jamie's past, and who is this Tom Christie, and who are his 2 children, who one of them is immediately interested in Ian, and is just, there's so much that we have like skipped over to get to this point. And to me, the character development isn't there like ever. And so now we're going to like go back, and then that stuff's going to happen. And instead of there being a logical reason for Roger to have more in charge, because that's going to be a long recovery for Jamie, and he's going to like limp now a little bit, and he's going to need to get up his strength. And so it was the perfect time, because him training with Roger would also help him, because he needs to get back in his, and it just would have been bonding time. Like there is no bonding time. It doesn't exist, because Outlander doesn't care about the males' relationships with each other. There we go. There we go. So instead of it being like the Bechdel test, where can 2 women have a conversation that doesn't have to do with a man, there should be like an opposite, where 2 men can't have a conversation on Outlander that doesn't have to do with a woman. And I'm just saying, it's just bad both ways. Like Outlander. Anyway. All right. So let's wrap this up here to go back to some more. I really, really, really loved the acting in this. I thought Sophie Skelton broke my heart. She is cool under pressure, but she's terrified. She's willing to make sacrifices. She is, you know, I still am not a huge fan that they've had her go completely passive, but with the kind of Bonnet they have, because that's the thing. With Bonnet from the book, who just doesn't pretend to be anything else, he thinks Bree's funny. Like, he likes talking with her, because she's just like, you're keeping me captive. I hate you. I have a husband. He loves me. He's gonna come and get me. And she's constantly just like throwing barbs at him, and he just laughs at it. And it's almost this just like, it's even kind of scarier, because there's nothing that bothers him, and he's gonna do what he wants no matter what. And Bree is just like, mother effer, I'm tired of this. Like, just give me back to my family. I'm tired of you haunting me. Like, she just is so fierce. And so I love how Sophie acted it out, how she does, but there is a lot of it where I wish that I saw my feisty Bree. And I'm just praying that now that Stephen is gone and we don't have to worry about him, number one, that they'll stop talking about needing to go to the future for now, because I was sick of that coming up anyway, and that she will come into her own and she'll be doing more. I want to see her doing more inventing in the end of this and next season. I want to see her and Roger's like relationship develop, and I want that banter and love, and I want to see I want the ridge. And I think that's the thing, the show thinks the war stuff is what keeps people here. And I don't know about you guys, but the war stuff is the least interesting part to me. I mean, at least not until like book 7 and 8 when we're actually in the throes of the American Revolution. Like, I'm interested on the Ridge. There's so much drama that happens on the Ridge. It's a freaking soap opera, and we have only spent a couple episodes with Ridge stuff. Like, we're always doing other crap. And so I'd really, really like us to focus on the Ridge and getting to know all these people they introduce. Like, let's get to know the bugs. Let's get to know how the house is set up. Like, there's so many scenes in Claire and Jamie's like bedroom and kitchen, and like the kitchen is the main room of the house, and like Rollo and Ian coming in and the kids running around, and like I just love that stuff. And we're not getting any of it. We're focusing on these like big things, and I'm like, give me the soap opera part of this. That's what I want. So, all right, this video is way too long as always. You guys are so good to me. I love all of you who are watching this. Make sure you've answered that poll up there. Let me know what content you're going to want when the season's done, because I'm not giving up on Outlander. Outlander is where my heart's at. It's there. So thank you so much for watching. I put up my videos 3 to 4 times a week if you want to check out some of those. And you can watch my whole Outlander playlist. It'll be right at the end of this video. Have a great day. Bye.